Okay. Hi, welcome to NDE TV. I'm Peggy Robinson. Today's guest is Jay, and he is going to tell us about his near-death experience. And it's a little different, which I like. So, hi, Jay.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me. How are you?
I'm good.
Good,
So
good.
feel free to start wherever you like and take as long as you like.
All righty. Okay. Well, I like to give people a background of my life, of who I am. Because the reason why is because my background and my upbringing kind of I guess prepped me for what came, what happened. And I say that with a lot of things in life with people is just that everything that you go through from birth up until whatever situation you come to were just preparations, to get you stronger to handle the next thing that come. And it's almost inevitable that something will come. You can almost count on that. Um, but I was born on the south side of Chicago, and to a family that I mean, there was a lot of love. And Chicago has this rap for being, especially South Side or Inglewood, for being a very rough part of the city. Nevertheless, it is, but because of I want to say family bond, and strength and perseverance. I want to say I don't know if it's in our genetics, but we usually persevere and get through it. But my family was always full of love, support. However, even though we grew up like in the beginning, we grew up like in kind of I want to say a hostile environment, but it was I didn't notice that it was traumatic until a couple of years later. That
You
year,
mean because of the gangs in the area?
yes, because of the gangs, the violence, the drugs, and things like that. I thought they were actually, in a sense, I kind of almost thought that they were actually normal. I didn't think there was anything that was really done differently, from other families. But I saw it. I witnessed it. I want to say, been the in the middle of, you know, house raids, by the police, uh, bullying by the police. They did that a lot, even to us kids, they were kind of cruel. You wouldn't, but we got through it. We got through it. My family, regardless of what was going on, they never strayed from showing us how much they loved us and they cared for us. We would go on different trips. I mean, at the time, I was probably like, it was just two of us, me and my sister, and I pretty much got just about anything that I wanted. And as a kid, it was pretty nice. So it kind of blocked out everything else that was happening. Um, but my mom, she didn't want us to stay in that environment too long because it was pretty bad, and she was tired of the things that came with it. So she was about to move us to the projects of Chicago, anything to get away. But again, nevertheless, what she didn't realize was that the projects were like probably 10 times worse than what we were in, you know. But she was about to leave there. Then my grandmother, she decided to buy a home, which is on like several blocks away from where we were living at. And she bought the house for us to stay in. And
That's a good
I,
grandmother.
yeah, yeah, she is. She was, when they say that grandmothers are usually like the matriarchs of the family, they are, and she made sure that, we were safe, Um, and, I was, uh, as a child, I was just, going along with it, going along with it. But I got to meet the other side of my mom's family, on my mom's family, that is, my grandmother's side of the family, and got a lot of love from there. And even though we saw a lot of things again, we still had love was like the primary focus in our lives, and bond and loyalty, you know. And it sometimes it strengthened us, it gave us like that thick skin, to be able to handle the next thing that came. And like I said before, it was always something new, you know. Um, I ended up getting transferred to another school, which was again only a few blocks down from my mom's house, my grandmother's house. I didn't know anyone there. I was like an outcast. I was bullied, picked on, talked about from kindergarten all the way up to like seventh, eighth grade, you know. But when I was feeling like alone, I would always reach out to my family which was my all usually around my age or my aunties and uncles, and they were my friends. You know, they they didn't have me go without, that support system. You
You
know,
know why you were bullied?
yeah, definitely. Do I know why I was bullied?
Yeah.
Oh, because I was different. I didn't fit in. Bit. I want to say back in it was like the 80s. Kids are very cruel. They're very cruel, and sometimes a lot of times they don't think about what they're doing until they do it, and then they usually pick up off of what they're raised around. So in the inner city, it was a lot of that to where it was almost normal to pick on other kids. You know, especially if you wasn't from around there. They would make fun of my haircut, make fun of the fact that I was quiet. They considered me a nerd because I was quiet. I didn't really talk to anybody, kept to myself, had good grades. And it was just, I don't know, I guess I just didn't fit in with their group, you know. I've cried, trust me, I had many a days where I cried on the way home, wondering why nobody liked me, It was, even though I was kind to people.
I think
Um,
sometimes that's why they do it. When someone is sensitive, they know it's an easy target,
oh yeah,
so they
yeah, and
won't fight back.
it was so bad. It was that I want to say around sixth, seventh grade that heck, even one of the other quiet kids, wanted to become part of the other group. So he picked on me
Oh.
too. He was like, whatever works, to get in with this group, I'm going to pick on him too. And
So as long as
yeah,
he's not the low guy on the totem pole.
exactly. That's the way it is. Almost like a Survivor show way back then, you know. But um, again, it didn't. I want to say it bothered me, but because of that support from the family, it kept me good. It kept me good. And I saw a lot of things. And what was so funny was that even though I saw something, I may have felt funny about it, didn't really understand it. But then when something else happened, it was like, okay, this is a normal thing, where you wasn't so much as scared by it anymore, you know. Um, I I uh, also kept going like over my grandmother's house, because even though we moved, all my other family was still over there. So I would still go, we would still go over there to play with them and hang out with grandma and all them stuff like that. And again, it was still stuff going on, but the difference was I was able to come home afterwards. And again, they just became norms. But the older I got, I would say that it was one day I went home from school because I was about to get beat up by a bully. And because the principal came out, he the crowd disbanded, which I was like, you know. But I went home, went to my mom, and I started, I was crying, and she asked me what was wrong. I remember uh, going into the corner of our room, hitting the floor, and just crying. And she came in and asked me what was wrong, and I told her that I didn't have no friends. I didn't know why nobody liked me, and things like that. And she said, we're your friends. It's okay. We're your friends. She said, watch, as soon as you get in high school, you're going to have friends coming out the woodwork, you know. I was like, really? Okay. So I believed her. But then it was like the next day when I went back to school, I thought that the guy who was going to beat me up, I thought he was going to finish the job. But he actually did it like a 360. He was like, he said, well, he said, I respect you. The fact that you stood up to me, I respect you, that you stood your ground. And I was relieved, but I thought I had a friend now. I don't think that's the way that works. It's just I respect you. I'm not saying I'm your friend now. you know. But I started doing other things to keep me occupied, to something to find me happy. So I turned to dancing. I started mimicking all dance moves from like television and, music videos and everything. And I liked it. I loved it. It made me feel good. And it wasn't the first time though, because the first time that I was introduced, I was probably like 7, 8 years old to breakdancing. I wasn't really good at it, but it was cool. It was cool. Um, but I got to dancing. I liked it. And it was just me and my own little world. And I had to worry about nobody else and stuff like that. And then one day I was coming home from school. Um, and in the 80s, I want to say the late 80s, hip hop was huge. And had my high top fade on, my baggy clothes, patent leather shoes like MC Hammer and all that. And was coming down the street, walking up to my door and walking up to my house, and a bunch of guys was in front of my house. I thought they were going to beat me up too. Even though I never got beat up, but I thought I was on my verge to getting beat up again. Um, so they was like, so I heard you can dance. And I was like, yeah. And then one of them was like, can you beat my brother? He can dance, but you can't beat him. So little dance battle ensued. I think I won. My guy said probably disagree, but I think I won. And then after that, we became friends. All of us, we started dancing together. We ended up attending the same high school. Eventually, we would do like talent shows, pep rallies, what they call sock hops, and everything. And it was just like my mom said that when I started dancing, people started, noticing me. I wasn't picked on anymore. I was proud of a cool crowd. Um, and even though I was part of this cool crowd, we had so much fun. Of course, you still had the gangs and everything, but what was funny was that the gangs didn't really bother you if you danced, because this is so weird because when you danced, the girls liked it. And they were
Oh.
like, okay, wherever the girls are going, we're going too. So if you dance and they following you, we going with you. Keep what you're doing. So it worked. you know, um, Again, when I got in high school and I started dancing, I wasn't picked on. Still was around family, still with the friends. And again, all these lessons with meeting new people, with the bullying, with the violence, with the gangs, all that stuff. They all like was like grooming me, grooming me for what was next. And we got to a point to where we started doing bigger shows. Um, we did we did we started opening up concerts for different peoples. Um, we opened up a concert for rappers like Ghetto Boys, DJ Quick, who was it? I think it was Red Man, uh, Method Man, and it was fun. It was
It
fun. It
sounds
was
fun.
keeping us out of the neighborhood. We were only 15, 16 years old. In our teens, traveling. Doing things and stuff.
Very cool.
Um, Then we got our biggest break was when the Apollo came to Chicago and they were looking for acts for their show. And we had just found out about it the day before we did audition. So we wasn't prepared. But we said, okay, let's go for it. So we practiced literally when we found out. Next day, went in there, people from all over practicing. I mean, it was up there auditioning, and when it came to our turn, the lights went out, so we thought we missed it. So, but they called us back and said, you can come back in to audition. We went, auditioned, we got the part, competed at the show that they had there in Chicago, and we won. And then we were flown all expense paid trip to New York to be on the actual Apollo Theater. So when we got there, we did our performance, and it was the first time we had ever been to New York. So it was an experience, And at that time, around that same time, we had started. One of our guys had introduced us, started telling us about God. He was always a religious person, but he would start telling us, well, uh, God, that's not his name. That's not, Jesus' name, what you calling him. And we just wanted to perform and dance, We was like, okay, man, whatever. We didn't think anything about it. So we eventually went to a place that he told us about to start learning about the Bible, studying and everything and all that. And so when we went to New York, we were surprised to see that some of the guys that learned some of the stuff that we now knew, that they were there as well, you know. But the only difference was these guys, they I'm trying to say this without having to, I'm trying not to offend anyone, even those who offend others. They were pretty offensive to others. They were pretty offensive to others, calling people out of their names on the street corners in Manhattan, pointing fingers. And it was like, we just found out about this, learning about God like this, and and knowing this way, but we go over here and these same guys talking about God, but they saying it with a lot of hate. It was almost like a different message, and it was confusing. So it stayed in our brain, it stayed in my mind, even until we got back to Chicago.
They
But
have
we got
against
there.
you?
I'm sorry.
What did they have against you?
Oh, it wasn't us. It was
Oh,
against
okay.
everybody else.
Okay.
Yeah, they were talking about everybody else, talking about, some people are the devil and pigs, just this, and I mean, just horrible things that just didn't sound right, And I wasn't a deeply religious guy, but I did know when something wasn't right, when something wasn't nice. Because again, I got bullied when I was younger, so I can kind of see when bullying is going on, even though I was only about 15, 16 years old when I was in New York. But we did our performance on the Apollo, still remembering that. We didn't win because of hometown favorite, somebody that was a local there, they won. Granted, we could have did a little better anyway, but they won. But nevertheless, the people at Apollo, they was like, well, you guys did great anyway, and you can always come back whenever you want. So we took them up on that, and we eventually went back again in '97 to perform. Uh, we didn't win. Again, another local favorite. Never go to New York and compete on a stage where their locals are competing with you. Lesson learned. But when we went back to Chicago, we were like hometown favorites, celebrities and everything. And even though we were these hometown favorites and whatnot, we started studying more. We got more into our studies, knowing more about who we are, learning more about God. And it was, I want to say, an eye opener for us to see the different aspects and the different ways that people believe in God, and us, we were very overzealous, being teenagers and some finding out these new things. We were we were a handful, to where we would sometimes go in churches and beat people over the head, not literally beat them, but tell them like this ain't right, this, no, don't do that, don't do this, do that. Yeah, we got kicked out of many churches because of that. Got chased out of out of churches with women with Bibles, telling us that don't come in here with that devil stuff and everything. And we were just kids learning, learning more things, learning more about ourselves and learning more about the world, other than what was in our neighborhood, what we was used to seeing. Nevertheless, as we got older, the group slowly started to disband, people started having families and everything. And I mean, we didn't not like each other. Of course, we were still buddies. These were not my brothers, but everybody started having their families and everything. And I met someone, and me and her eventually had a daughter, and had um she caught my eye. She's very pretty, and I met her through a friend of mine, and we just, hit it off, and we had another son in 99. And it just so happened that her mom and them had just moved here to Columbus, Ohio. And she came up here to visit them with, our two children. And when she came back, she said she wanted to move there. And I was saying, no, this is with my family and friends that I did not want to move. Um, she still insisted, and I was like, no. So we waited a little while, had another daughter, and things wasn't getting better in the neighborhood. It kind of started to take a even further downturn. Drug dealers started moving in on the block. They were strangers, people we didn't even know, but we knew who sent them. And then one day I found like a bag of crack cocaine on the side of my grandmother's house, and we had children running up and down the street and playing and everything. And when I found it, I was like, that's it, I'm done. You guys can have this. Me and my family, we up. You guys can have this. Wasn't thinking about nothing. Like I said, my friends and family, everybody was there, but I still wasn't thinking about anything other than just getting away from it. So we moved here 2001. I didn't like it because it was really quiet, and I of course, didn't know anybody, and it was totally different from southside of Chicago. Very quiet. We had a rough patch, because I ended up staying with her and her parents, who in the beginning didn't like me because of my different, they say different beliefs than they had, so they didn't really like me at the time. So we ended up staying with them, three kids. Very uncomfortable, very uncomfortable. But it seemed like the pressure was on. Again, something new. The pressure was on. And it was like the same year we had, I think it was the World Trade Centers had happened, and then we had the death of an artist named Aaliyah as well. And I felt a little closer to one with Aaliyah because I had did an audition for her to be in their concerts that her and R. Kelly was having back in the mid-90s, and I had met her, and I thought she was a really nice person. So to see that she had passed in that accident, it was like wow, but the pressure was on. Now I had three children, and I had to get my thing together. I left my job and everything that I had in Chicago, everything to move here. We ended up getting a place across the street from her mom and dad or whatnot, and probably that's when the things. I think I think my life started to change even more when we took our move. It already started to change when we moved here, period. But it took another change for the worse, for the most challenging. All those things that I had learned and experienced in Chicago, all that strength was about to pay off. It was about to be put to the test, because when we got our place, we were arguing. We were, I want to say arguing. I don't like to argue, but debating. I don't like to scream. I hate screaming. It takes a lot of energy out of you. But we were going back and forth. She took her engagement ring off, which nobody knew we was married. That's how I found out that she wasn't really feeling me, because we were engaged since 99. It is 2001 and nobody knew. But as soon as she broke it off and everything, I went into my room, laid down. Then my dad called and said that my grandmother wasn't doing good. She wasn't going to make it. And I guess shortly after that, my grandmother passed. So that was a bit hard for me because I just broke up with my kid's mom. I'm in a place that I don't want to be, I'm away from my family, and now my grandmother passed. So we went to Chicago to bury my grandmother. Um, Got back out here, still trying to get things together because we end up getting back together. You know how that stuff goes, living together. And then she got pregnant with our youngest son. Now he's 19. And and we, just going through the ropes. I was working, taking care of my family, and then I went to Chicago again just to visit, but this time with her dad. And since I wasn't driving, I wasn't able to see everybody. And my cousin Chevelle, as I was leaving, he said, "What's up, cuzzo? You never came and see me. Why didn't you come and see me? You's up here. Why didn't you let me know?" I said, "I promise. The first person I see when I get up here, it's going to be you. I promise." He was like, "Okay, cuzzo." So got back up here. Not even a few months later, me and her again were having a disagreement in the kitchen. Again, she took the ring off. As soon as I went in my room again, I don't know what it was about this room. Lied down. I got a call from my cousin Will and told me that my cousin Vale was killed. And he was killed he was killed in front of the house of our grandmother who had just passed. So he was killed on her lawn, murdered. And I didn't want to believe it. And I felt guilty because I told him that I was going to come and see him when I went back. So that was hard on me. Went up there to bury him. This was in 2003. Went up there to bury him. Came back. It just got worse. I started working for Myers, and then I was doing anything I could to bring in money. Went back to work at Coca-Cola, and I had to do a physical while I was about a year into Coca-Cola, and then in the physical they told me that I had lupus. I didn't know what lupus was. I didn't take it seriously. I was just like, okay, it is what it is. So now I have lupus, don't know how to handle it, what it is. Still haven't mourned over my deaths in those families. My relationship was falling even further and further apart. We were still living in a house. She decided to move on while we were still living together. So I was feeling even more hurt, missing my family. And then probably about a year later, I got diagnosed with depression. Um, Still going, no venting. Then I got diagnosed with, I think the following year after that, severe anxiety. Then I was having anxiety attacks like every day, you know. Then we actually stopped living in the same house, started going over custody battles. And then it seemed like a year after that, another death in the family. And a year after that, another death in the family. They just kept going and going and going. And I would just like taking care of my family and just pushing through, and just at the same time letting it all just build up, Um, then
Were
I
these
want to say
people
two.
getting murdered in Chicago, the deaths in the family?
Most of the deaths in the family were either by diseases,
Okay.
a couple of them, a few of them was murders, like my cousin Chevelle, one of my buddies was a murder. But a lot of them some of them were unexpected. One of them was cancer, one of them was old age. Uh, it was just back to back, and again, no mourning, but this pressure was just like building up, you know. And then I want to say 2012, 2013, I got diagnosed with a pulmonary embolism. Uh, and they said, "Here, take this medicine." They said it can be fatal. You got to watch out. You got to keep taking this medicine. So I was taking my medicine, and when they said it was fatal, I just looked at like, okay, fatal. Eh, nothing fatal is gonna happen to me, because I was just on autopilot. Um, I had that pulmonary embolism. Again, I was having anxiety attacks almost like every day, every day, all day, in and out of the hospital. And I want to say 2015, I got a call from my sister. Now, my uncle Craig was killed, and he was killed by my little brother. Um, and it was because of my little brother was drunk. They don't call liquor spirits for nothing, you know. And I was like, nah, don't tell me that. That didn't happen. That didn't happen. And she said, yeah, yeah. So that was bothering me. Had to go bury my uncle. Um, and then the note of my little brother was getting locked up now. So it's like two family members. And it just kept coming and coming. And I was going through the, like I said, the custody battles, and it was like pain after pain after pain. And bills were starting to pile up, working overtime at work, trying to keep up with things and not at that. And
Being a
then I
sensitive
met,
person anyway.
yeah, it was a lot, And then I want to say the end of that year, I met, I decided to talk to somebody on a dating app. I was pretty much done with dating because ain't none of them go well afterwards. So I was just worried, just concerned with taking care of my family, doing what I'm supposed to do. Um, just started talking, nothing serious, and that was like in December, went on, then go to the hospital for my checkup. I do checkups like twice a year. Come to find out that one blood clot turned into three blood clots in my lungs. So it was like, okay, now I got three blood clots. It is what it is. It's a lot going on. I'm tired. I'm just gonna keep going. But if it wasn't for because I had kind of brushed past this in my talking, but if it wasn't for meditation, I probably would have cracked, because I started meditating probably a few years prior, probably 2013, 2012. And it was because I had read a book called The Autobiography of a Yogi, that someone found out about. I forget how I found out about it. So I started reading it, and I was like, anything can help. Started meditating. Like I said, the meditation, it was the only thing that pretty much kept me grounded, from literally losing my mind of everything that was happening. But if it wasn't for that, I don't know what would have happened. But me and a girl, we continued talking. And then I want to say earlier, probably like mid-year, probably like June or something like that. I'm pretty sure the date. Then I went to the hospital for another checkup, and they said I had angina. I'm like, will it stop? Like, I'm like, man, I don't bother nobody. I'm the kindest person. I'm nice. I said, why do I have to keep going through these things? It's just like so much. I'm tired. It
How
was
old were
very
you?
exhausting. I was 39.
Okay.
I was 39. And me and a girl, we just still talking. I kind of try to take my mind off of it. I was losing weight because of, I want to say, then stress and anxiety. I was losing weight and I wasn't eating, because finances got so tight to where I had to choose between feeding the house and paying mortgage. Sometimes I'll go to work with just an apple. If I can scrounge up a cup of change in a couch, I can have an apple for that lunch for that evening. But I was losing weight, and she was still there. She had me dwindle away, but she still had my back, and I was still under pressure and anxiety. Um, and then one day, I want to say August 17th, 2016, um, the evening I did it. I was working like the late afternoon shift to where I was coming in from work. So I get in like maybe 10 o'clock at night. I had a funny feeling in my chest, but I wasn't aware what it was. I was already paranoid, from, knowing that I had pulmonary embolism and everything else and whatnot. But it was like, okay, I had a funny feeling, didn't think anything serious of it. I began to call my mom and my buddy, as I sometimes usually do right before I turn in. So I'm in the kitchen. I called them, And the next thing you know, I'm waking up in the hospital almost a week later. I had no idea what happened. Uh, I just knew that I was just in this hospital bed, doctors down there, my family, which was shocking, standing there with this glow over them, and I didn't notice that this glow, I recognize that glow as being, as love. I think that was how I found out that love was an entity, that it actually was alive, Um,
What happened? Did
but
you have a heart attack while you were on the phone with them and they called someone?
see, that was the thing that nobody, I, I didn't know. The doctors was telling me, they said, Jay, do you know what happened? We know why you're here. And I couldn't talk because I had tubes and everything. They said, you had a heart attack. They said, you had a heart attack and you left us. You died for an entire day. And I didn't think anything of it because I'm still hooked up to tubes and I'm just there. And I come to find out that that evening when it happened, I'm assuming it was like the early morning of the 18th. It said I drove myself to the hospital, which is about 5, 10 minutes away, parked my car. As soon as I walked through the emergency room doors, I collapsed and went into cardiac arrest. Um, the doctor, it was a cold blue call. They came out, resuscitated me, got me back, went back to try to stabilize me. I coded again, and they put a stent in my heart to stabilize me, and then I coded again. They stabilized me again, and then life flighted me to the nearest trauma hospital, which was Riverside Hospital. And as soon as I got to Riverside Hospital, I coded like 2 more times. And I'm assuming this is like in the middle, early morning, like 3, 4, something like that. So when this happened, excuse me, they called my, can you hear that noise in the background? Good.
You hear?
Uh,
Okay.
they called my mom and sister in Chicago, and they said, someone need to get up here with him. He is not doing good. He's not looking good. We brought him in from a heart attack and everything. And of course, they responded as you would think they responded, ecstatic. So um, they was like, we've been working on it for 45 minutes. And my mom was like, 45 minutes? She said, she said, my baby's been in there 45 minutes and you just calling me, you know? So they called my family. I mean, tell them that. They said, okay, they'll rush up here. This was in Chicago. They called them in Chicago. And I'm up here in Columbus, about 5, 6 hours away. So while they're working on me, my mom called my little brother, which lived in the suburbs, and told him, and they all started to come back up here, immediately race out. They called them shortly after that while they were on the road and said that we're sorry, he's gone. We lost him. So my mom heard it, but I'm thinking that it didn't hit her. She didn't really want to hear that. So they just continued, kept going. Um, they called my kids, which was here with their mom, staying here with their mom while I was in the hospital. I mean, she didn't know I was in the hospital, but they was with her anyway because I was at work. So they called them, they came up and everything. And my son, my son, the youngest, he was probably like, he was still in grade school. So that morning he called the girl that I just started dating. He called her and told her, because she had just got in from the hospital from work, and she worked ironically at the hospital that I was at. So she had just got in from work, and he called her and said, Dad dead, Dad died. So she rushed right back out to the hospital to be up there with me. And meanwhile, my sister-in-law, their auntie, I still call her my sister. She was up there. She stayed by my hospital bed every day and everything. They all came up there and was just supportive. So my mom finally arrived, I want to say that evening or later on that afternoon or something like that. She got off got off the elevator, and she was like, okay, where's my baby? And my kid's mom told her, she was like, he's already gone. He's been gone the entire day. My mom, she hit the floor and, you know, she was sad, as you would expect, so everybody came to my room. My company that I worked for, Coca-Cola, they was notified of it. My regional supervisors, co-workers, they all came up there surprised, to support me, which I was very humbled that they did. And my daughter, she was 18. She just turned 18. She said, it was like, well, you have to make the decision to actually, so we can take him off of this machine and we can start the process as far as signing papers, morgue, and all that stuff. And she said, no, he's still in there. And hey, doctors and everybody was like, no, he's already gone. He's been gone all day. There's nobody in there. She was like, no, keep him on, keep him on.
But you
Now
had a
this
bunch of
machine,
strokes, right?
that didn't come until after they got my heartbeat back, after
Oh,
my
okay.
heartbeat came back.
Okay.
So she was like, no, don't do it. Keep him on. And even though the doctor said I was gone, all my organs had shut down, brain, everything was gone. So she said, wait another day. They went to my house, started getting everything ready for my house, and making memorial plans, making phone calls. And that morning, the 19th, the doctors called them back and said, we found a faint pulse. So they ecstatic, excited. It's like, what? Shocked, because they were already making memorial plans and everything. So they came up there, rushed up there, and the doctors was like, well, even though we found a faint pulse, he only have like a 20-something percent of survival. And if he do, we don't know what his quality of life is going to be, because of, what happens with that. So they was like, no, keep him on, keep him on, we still going to fight, so they put me in medically induced coma, hooked me up to a machine called the ECMO machine, which was pumping blood through my body. So my heart, even though my heart got that fake pulse back, they wanted to give my heart some rest, since even though it already had a whole day of rest. But they had me this medically induced coma, and while in that coma, I had like 26 strokes, various parts of my brain. And it was looking dire. My organs had to come back. And the doctors were really shocked. They were saying, we don't get it. We don't understand how everything was shut down. His organs are coming back faster than we would expect it. So everybody was shocked, but relieved, and me, I remember opening my eyes a couple of times and seeing like my brother, one of my guys who I consider my brother now, him and his wife and his kids and my kids at the foot of my bed, and his wife was holding my hand, and I opened my eyes. She was like, can you hear me? She said, if you can hear me, squeeze my finger. I remember squeezing her finger. I do remember that. And I went back out. And I was just, I didn't have any worry, no doubt, no concerns or anything. I wasn't curious on why I was there or nothing. And the even more ironic part, funny part was that I didn't know that I was dead. You know,
Where
I
were
thought I was
you?
just, I thought I was just sleeping,
Uh-huh.
you know, because I was just existing. I was just being, excuse me, I remember being, uh, I was going down this tunnel. It was like an amber tunnel, oval all around, and there were like hands reaching out. I don't know if they had clothes or anything, but I just know there was hands reaching out for me, but I didn't feel no kind of way. I didn't feel scared or anything. And I got to the end of the tunnel, and all I know, I'm like floating down the highway. Uh, and no cars was out, but I know it was a highway because I know what a highway looked like, with no cars was out. It was gloomy, it was dark and everything. And I'm just floating, and I noticed that I did pass like some landmarks that was here in Columbus in a brewery district on Front Street. And then it was like almost immediately after that, I found myself like shot up or like straight to space, you know. And when I was in space, I didn't have any form. All I know that I just existed. I was just there. I was aware of my existence. In front of me to the like almost like your foot still, what you know in front of you, but like towards down. And I saw the earth, big round ball, and it was like an energy circulating inside and out the earth, like throughout the earth, energy. It looks like it was almost like in the form of a tree, but this energy was going inside and out, flowing in and
What
out.
did Earth look like?
Just this big round ball with this tree of energy coming from it.
Okay.
Yeah. Um, and other than that, it was just darkness everywhere else. And then to my left, I saw this big wormhole, a galaxy of stars, you know. And I didn't know until like literally a couple years ago, that because I was just looking through some papers and stuff like that. I mean, looking through some stuff online, come to find out that I was like, wait a minute, that's what I saw. And I was trying to get people to understand what I saw. I said, that's what I saw. And then I'm reading and I found out that it was the Andromeda galaxy. That's what they said. I thought it was just maybe like a wormhole or something, but it was the galaxy. So I saw the stars, and then I saw the earth, and then I heard my name called to my right. It sounded like a feminine voice. But then I looked over and I didn't see anybody or see anything. So I just was looking at the stars again and the earth. And I believe I was like contemplating, like, I really wanted to go towards those stars. I really wanted to go in it because it was, kind of fascinating. But
Was
I
Earth
heard,
dark too?
no, Earth was just this big brown rock. Just
Did it
floated.
have color?
I don't know. I don't remember.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
I'm just curious.
that's okay. I heard my name again. I didn't know where it came from. Like I said, looked to my right, and then since I didn't see anything, but then after I heard my name again, then it just went, it's black again. Then I didn't remember. Then I didn't remember seeing anything else other than everybody else randomly throughout the hospital, coming to see me and stuff like that.
Did you see
Um,
that from out of your body? Everybody come to see you?
I don't remember. That's the thing. I don't
Okay.
remember it personally, but while I was gone, my nephew, his name is Xavier, he had just called my mom, called them while they was at the hospital on the bed, when I was gone. And he said, just saw Uncle Jay. He said, Uncle Jay he said he's in like in this dark room and he's sitting and he's saying, what about my kids? What about my kids? Now, I don't remember any of this, but he was telling them that, so they got goosebumps when he said that, you know, and then he
Like he
began to
saw
tell,
your spirit?
right, like he saw me or something, or he was with me or something. I don't
Oh.
remember any of that, you know. And then he was like, he said, Uncle Jay said, stop rubbing on his arm, you know. Again, I don't remember that. And my mom even got more spooked because she was rubbing on my arm. So it's apparent that from that I did see them. Do I remember it? No, but the fact that he said that and he wasn't even there, I must have saw them, you know. Um, but it was they were spooked. They had
They
goosebumps
call
when they
that
were
a
telling me.
shared death experience.
Is that what they say that is?
Hmm.
Yeah, it was wild. It was wild, But it was it was such an experience to where I felt like fresh. I was new, reborn, no concerns, no worries, no doubts, no anger, no frustration. Even the doctors were kind of surprised that because they say usually when people come to and they find a tube in their throat, they usually try to get it's erratic, pulling stuff out. I was calm. I was
And
just
your anxiety was gone?
everything was gone. I was new. I felt amazing. And again, I say this every time I say this. This is probably one of the most morbid things. It was the best rest I ever had in my life. The best, you know. But it wasn't until by this time I started getting tubes coming out. They took out the breathing tube. I still had a trach in. I still have my trach mark. Um, And it wasn't until they started turning on the television and it was like around election time, and it was just like, that's when I started feeling bad, because I was seeing all this dissension and hate and this it was just horrible things, and I started really feeling bad, even though prior I was in the best feeling. It was like I was literally reborn like a newborn child. You know how the newborn child when they born, they just oblivious to everything around them. But then they start getting corrupted by life or sometimes their parents. And that's what it was. I was getting more corrupted just by television or things and stuff like that I saw. Um, but I was still in good spirits. I stayed in good spirits, and it wasn't until one day the therapist came in and they were like, okay, time to get up for your therapy. I was like, therapy? I'm like, what I need therapy for? I didn't think anything of, it's whatever. They say, okay, now be careful. I said, okay. So I proceeded to try to lift myself up. I'm weak, of course. Try to get out the bed and move my legs around. It was a little heavy. Then almost tried to stand up and almost collapsed. And I realized, I'm like, I can't walk. It was like, I can't walk. This is weird. So I was doing a therapy and I was struggling just to try to move my leg to even get a footing, you know. And that's when I realized, wow, you take a lot of things, the things you take for granted, something as simple as walking. And I was humbled, you know.
Was it because you hadn't
Uh,
moved in a week?
no, apparently, see, I didn't know what it was. I thought that maybe that's what it was, but apparently, I think apparently it was because a lot of it was the strokes, you know.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I had nerve damage, traumatic brain injury, which is some of the things that affect me to this day. A lot of the strokes were towards my cerebellum. No, not all of them, but some of them were in my cerebellum, and which is one of the reasons why I have like I'm nauseous almost every day. I get dizzy, vertigo all the time, and even the medicine don't help. That's how bad it is. And the neurologist was saying that because the damage is done in your cerebellum, it's not likely. I can't promise you anything. He said, but we can try the therapy with that. He said, but I can't promise because of where the damage is. I. It is what it is. I mean, I pretty much accepted my everything that came with me, after my experience, I even accepted the fact, which was the hardest thing, that I had to restart my life, not just spiritually over, I had to restart it over physically, because um, after I got out the hospital, which was also funny because when I stepped out, even the buses and the clouds, everything looked weird. It was so unfamiliar. It's like I was seeing it for the first time, I was
How long
looking
was you in the
around.
hospital?
Now, I was in the hospital for like, I think a couple of months.
Wow.
Yeah. So everything was weird, but I was just adjusting and, gradually adjusting to my new surrounding or my new life,
Did you
Um,
have to have heart surgery because of your heart attack?
no, I, however, they did let me loose. Excuse me, they did release me with, I had like a heart vest on, like an external defibrillator, because my heart was still operating at it was less than 50 or 40% capacity. So I had a heart defibrillator on to where since it stopped beating and whatnot, it automatically shocked me, you know.
Wow.
Yeah, I had a couple of close calls though when I was in bed, misreadings, lying in bed, and because it wasn't on my touching my body and whatnot, it'd be like a few times before it actually shocked you. And I was like, whoa, whoa, wait, I'm here, I'm here. Come on, I'm here, you know. But I had to carry that thing around for almost a year. I had to carry that thing around. Um, I found out that um, um, I found out that it could have been a lot worse. That they were even considering putting one in me. If that didn't work, they was going to put an external one, and I was optimistic that no, I'm gonna be okay, it's gonna be all right, and it did, thank heaven. But I had a feeding tube still in that I had to still be fed through this tube. I had a tube in my gallbladder. Um, um, yeah, I had a walker. I was just getting by, just getting by. But again, I wasn't concerned or worried. I was still in good spirits, but then the lawyers called and I had to file for bankruptcy to lose my house. So I lost my house because of that. And then my job, they sent me a letter and said they had to let me go because when I was gone, because I couldn't drive now, I couldn't do anything. So I had held that job for almost 20 years and now I had no job and no home, you know. Um, my girlfriend at the time, her and my mom was making a decision, trying to make a decision on where I was going to go for somebody to take care of me. And my mom wanted me to come with her. Like, no, I'm not going to Chicago, mom. All my doctors and everything is here. And plus my girlfriend, she was, excuse me, she was in the medical profession. So I decided to stay with her. So I stayed with her and her stepdad, and they nursed me. She nursed me back to health, got me to
Well,
my
Columbus
doctor's
is a good
appointment.
place to be if you're
It
going to have a
is.
major health problem because they have good hospitals.
I mean, it was amazing. They were really good to me. I probably about a year or so later, I went back up to the hospital and thanked everybody, for that, you know. And she said she had my back with everything, and was that I while I was in that hospital, I had made one of the life-changing decisions that I made because of her. It was a good decision because I was in a good spiritual state. Because one of the times when I woke up, I saw her standing next to my bed, and I had a trachea to where I couldn't speak and barely move. And she was holding my hand, and I looked up over at her, and my eyes got glossy, and I was shocked. And then I looked over it again, and I mouthed with my mouth. I said, "Will you marry me?"
I know a few NDEers that did that right after they came back from their near-death
Yeah.
experience proposed.
Oh yeah. I was like, "This is her." She said yes, of course, and I was in good place. Sometimes they're my kid's grandmother and some people had wanted that I do it out of obligation. I was like, no. I said because everything that was speaking through me was come from a divine, clear place. And it told me to do that, and I did that. And she's my wife to this day.
Awesome.
you know.
Awesome.
And she took off of work to get me to my appointments, took extra days to make sure I was doing the therapy I was supposed to do. Uh, yeah, she had my back. She held me down. She held me down. And I am literally starting my life over now, this time with a wife and now 5 children because we had a 2-year-old. We had a two
Oh,
year old. So
you had a child with her.
yes, yes.
Awesome.
And we didn't know if I can have children because of everything that happened,
Uh-huh.
We were pretty shocked, that I was able to have another kid. I was said, so be it, you know, it is what it is.
It's
So
nice.
yeah, so I'm grateful. I'm grateful for everything that happened. And if it wasn't for me experiencing everything I did on the south side of Chicago and here in Columbus, since I've been here, I don't know where I would have been because all that strength. A little bit of strength here, a little bit of strength there when I wanted to give up. I just wanted to throw in the towel. Um, I just want to just say whatever, do whatever. All that strength just like mustered up and came in handy, and it got me through all that, And now that I'm in like a different state of mind, I'm appreciative. No, I'm very humble and appreciative for every experience, rather bad or good.
Have you
I accept
noticed
it.
changes in your personality since this?
Oh yeah, my wife, she noticed a huge change because she said that she said I'm not the same person I was before. I'm like, yeah, that's a given. She said I'm not as lovey-dovey and things like that and everything. I said because for one, there's no doubt that I love you. No doubt at all. I said for one, but when you ask me, am I in love with you? I now know love to be beyond what people say, are you in love with me? Because I now know that when someone says, are you in love with me? That kind of equates to, are you infatuated with me? Or are you in lust with me? Something like that. Me me loving you has nothing to do with saying, am I in love with you? It's not the same thing. And I had to explain that to her. And she didn't really want to hear that. At the time, she wanted to hear, are you in love with me? Because she's still, connected. But I understood love at a different level now. I understood what love is and what is not. And also, now that my kids were getting older, I had on my mind to like now, I still have to take care of my family. You know, how am I going to take care of my family? So I was thinking about that often. That was on my mind every day because I didn't have to question if I loved her or not. So that wasn't a big thing for me. She felt it was different, but it wasn't a big thing for me. Now my thing was, I'm not saying it's not a big thing. It's where you know what I'm saying. Not saying that, but it wasn't a concern because I knew I loved her. But now I was thinking about how I'm gonna take care of my family. I have no job now. I can't do what I used to. I can barely walk. I can barely, keep from falling down because of dizziness and all that stuff. So I was really thinking about what next. What do I do now? And to this day, it still has been a challenge. But I said that whatever I do, I want to do something to help people. I want to do something that can help people at least see what it feels like, a little bit of that bliss that I did. And the only way I know how to is with meditation because the only thing that I can equate that's even relating close to it was what I experienced in meditation. So I was like, okay, how can I do that? So I decided that I wanted to create a place called Daleth Aromatherapy Meditation Sanctuary, a sanctuary where people can come meditate at their own leisure, however they want to meditate, different classes, experience aromatherapy from actual natural aromas of plants and all that. And yes, I was probably being a little bit overzealous, but I was like, I got to do it. But now that I'm new, I have no good credit, I have no income, I have no resources. How am I going to do this? So I reached out, was trying to find it, and come find out no one would give me a loan because I didn't have any of these things. Looked into architects and everything. It was going to cost a lot of money to build. And it was just like already knocked down. I even tried to do it as a nonprofit to say, okay, well, maybe if I do it as a nonprofit, I can get help from people, knowing that this would benefit people. Excuse me. Not just, I didn't get $1 donation, no response. So I was like, okay, that's the way the world is. I think I'll change it to a for-profit business. So I turned to a for-profit business again. Again, you had to have money to get loans for all that stuff. Credit wasn't there, no history, so to speak. So I was starting over, still trying, still nothing. So I said, okay, the best way I can do this, after doing all this brainstorming, I just create a website and I'll provide the resources for people to make this sanctuary in their own home. So I started the website and it was as far as I got thus far to helping people. It's something,
What's it
but
called?
it's called Daleth, DALETH dash AM dash sanctuary.com. And it had everything, devices, aromatherapy, candles, locations, retreats, anything that's associated with aromatherapy and meditation. I put on my website to where if you want to know where to do it, how to do it, just go on my website, you can find it. Since like now I have to, what I actually want to do, I still got to find a way to do that. I didn't give up because that's still my goal because I know that it'll help me. And I know it'll help people to be able to experience that. And that's my primary goal, to be able to do that. And it'll help me take care of my family better.
What's
That's
your
what
anxiety and depression like now?
I don't, my anxiety, I don't have those anxiety attacks like I used to.
That's
However, yesterday I was talking to my wife. I said, you know what? Even though I don't have those anxiety attacks like I used to, I think that it kind of started showing itself in a different way because I clench my jaws and stuff like that. So I said, I think that's what it is. She said, maybe. I said, I think that's what it is. But those anxiety attacks, I don't have them anymore.
I have to
Depression,
stay away from caffeine so I don't have anxiety because it does
it's
it.
the,
Even
yeah,
decaf.
and that's the thing. I don't drink caffeine. I don't drink soda. I stay away from like green tea because it has caffeine. But it's still, I think my anxiety or whatever it is, it's from constantly and every day trying to think of ways to where I can make the money or do something to take care of my family better. I think about that every day when I go to sleep, when I wake up. And I think that's the only way. As far as problems and people, no, I don't have depression or anxiety from people.
You feel
If
like you come
anything,
back with any gifts?
well, I did. I was leery of it at first. I was a little scared because um, I had already been very sensitive, especially afterwards, to energies and feeling things and spirits and stuff. But then I started to see them in my dreams, actually demons and stuff like that, associated with like my grandmother's house and stuff like that. And um, I I assumed that that was because when my uncle was killed, he was killed inside my grandmother's house. So I started thinking that maybe that has something to do with it. But then I started having visions and feelings and started feeling low and sad and heavy, but didn't know why. And I was just like, okay, maybe it's depression and stuff like that. But then it would be shortly after that a major incident would happen. I think the first one that I experienced was with it was a train accident in Washington. It was a train derailment in Washington some years back. And prior to that, I had that feeling that it was something heavy, and then that happened. I chalked it up as being like a coincidence, something that it is what it is. But then I had another one right before the Vegas mass shooting. I said, okay, maybe it's another coincidence. Nah, don't pay attention to it. Here's I said, let me give this a try. Let me see. Let me just go with the flow. And then it was like one day I posted on social media on my Facebook site. I said something is happening, something that's about to happen. It's very heavy and saddening. I said, but it's going to affect the whole world. I don't know what it is, but it's going to affect the whole world. It's going to affect everybody. And it was like a few days later that weekend, the George Floyd incident happened, and it did affect everybody around the world. I was like, wow. I still kept that post on my social media. So, but even though that happened, it was like I didn't know how to control it and I didn't understand it. So I prayed, which I usually do right before I meditate. And I said, this is a lot for me. I said, I'm grateful if this is what it is. I said, but I don't know how to handle this. I don't know how to deal with it. It's heavy on me. Please take it away from me, even if it's momentarily. He took it away, and I didn't have those feelings like that much anymore. Then I gave it about a year or so. I said, okay, I'm ready now. you know, he gave it back to me, and then I was meditating in my son-in-law's closet. I sometimes go, it's really dark, and then I sometimes go in there when I like really want a really, really deep connection. And I was meditating in my closet, and in the closet it was really dark, and I started having these visions. And then I had a vision. I said it was the vision of a war. I said, and this war is going to involve um, these army men with red on their hat, green and red on their hat. I said, I'm assuming this is Russia. I said, but then it's like they're going against themselves. I don't know what this is. It seemed like they're going against themselves or whatnot. And then I just like got up and like, okay, wow, this is weird. And I went and told my wife, I said, well, I just had this vision about It's like these army men in Russia. They all had on this, red band, and they were fighting to go into battle, but it seemed like they were going into battle with themselves. She said, "Was it America?" I said, "No, it wasn't America." I said, "It's almost like they were going into battle with themselves, but they were going to war." And and I just went on throughout my life, and then just so happened that Russia decided to invade Ukraine earlier last year. And I told my wife, I said, "That's what I saw." I said, "Wow." So they come. I'm still trying to figure it out and get a grasp on it, but it is heavy to try to understand because again, as I mentioned before, I'm still trying to figure out or trying to navigate my life as far as what next for me. Because I've had a job since I was 15, and now that I'm not working and I'm trying to do something and I'm trying to see how I'm bringing more money for my family, where my health doesn't intervene. And so it was like, it's a lot to deal with that, to be sick every day, and then to have those premonitions or those visions come, that heaviness. So it's a lot sometimes. And I just keep pushing through, rather I'm feeling well or not. I just take my breather, sit down if I have to, get back up and keep at it, even if I'm not feeling 100%. And the doctors told me, they said, even when you recover, they said, you'll never be 100% again. You just got to get used to that. And I accept it, you know, but it doesn't stop me from keep trying to do better and to be a good person and to try to help people as much as I can. Still trying to figure that out. I'll get it together.
When I get those feelings, I describe it as like it's in the air. I feel something in the air, like something's gonna happen. Like I can feel it, like a
Mm-hmm.
storm coming.
Yes, yes, yes. I've had survivor's guilt. I've experienced that. I didn't know it was a thing until somebody told me about it because excuse me. Afterwards, in these past few years, there's been a bunch of people that I've been known as actually been passing away from one stroke or one heart attack, you know, being disfigured and stuff like that. And I'm like, and I had 26 of them. And I'm like, I'm still here, and this wasn't taking anything away from who they were as a person. These were good people, you know, but it was thinking like, okay, what I have in store for me, what I have lined up me for must be really huge, really, really huge for that to happen,
Now you
you
wrote a
know.
book, right?
Yes.
And what's the
I
name of
didn't
your
want to
book?
write it. I didn't want to write it at first, but everybody was saying, because I didn't want to be boastful, but they said, no, that's not boastful. They said, that's helping people. I was like, nah, I don't really want to, but I bucked up and decided to. So I wrote the book. It's called Dalet. It's called The Second Time Around, a memoir about a life, a death, and a second chance. And at the top of my book, I have my birth date, 2/16/77, dash death date,
216?
2/16/77. That was my
My
birthday.
birthday's 216.
In February, really, February,
61. We have the
Aquarius,
same birthday.
Aquarius, go figure. That makes that is something special about us. You know, I didn't want to write it though, but I said if it helped people, inspire people to never give up, even when the doctors or somebody say that to give up and that there's nothing to hold on to, even when you feel like you going through so many things, deaths, trauma, whatever, still take that lesson and use it for the next one. Take that strength, take them and just keep moving. You can get through it. And that's why I wrote that book.
Did it take you very
Yeah.
long to write it?
It was funny. I want to say it took me about a year. I started writing it in I want to say mid 2017, and I published it in 2018. Self-published in 2018. And I took the first copy to my post-stroke neurologist, And she said, I'm surprised you was able to write a book after all that strokes. She said, I'm surprised. I said,
Yeah.
Me too. You
Did you
know,
have to hire an editor or was you able to get it out? Okay.
I did. I had to hire,
Excellent.
like on Upwork, I had to hire, freelancer to edit it for me and everything. I went over like two, three different editors to try to get it right. Um, I wanted to be as authentic as possible to where it's like it's me, not that what's the word I'm looking for, where they say you have to use certain grammar and everything. It's like, no, I want it to be like you actually hearing me talking.
Right.
So I had to find one of the editors, one of the people who rewrote it a little bit to who was willing to acknowledge that. So I
That's good.
finally got it out. Yeah, and was able to get barnesandnoble.com in 2019 for them to pick it up on their website. So I was like, thank you.
Yeah. It makes, I say unlikely authors out of us into ears that are not like ever thought
Yeah,
would ever write a book.
I swear I never would have thought it. I mean, I've had some time where I've had people who wrote the book, who read it, you know, some people were like, I had a couple of people that was like, man, that book is really good. They said, it was like, man, this sound like a movie I'm reading. It should be a movie or something. I said, sometimes art imitates life. you know, I said, this was mine. I said, if somebody tried to pick it up, cool. I said, if it's just written to inspire people, cool. I'm cool for whichever way, you know.
It's an amazing feeling to get that first shipment of books, isn't it? With your name
It
on it.
was, it was. And I'm not a I'm awkward when it comes down to talking to people, and trying to get people to convince them to do something. So when I got the book, I was like, okay, now how am I supposed to get this book out?
Right.
I don't know how to talk to people. Then I started doing YouTubes and finding out this and the different suggestions. And I'm like, nah, no, no, this is very uncomfortable. Very uncomfortable. I just don't. I wrote the book. That's a start. Let's keep it at that.
I used
If
to
if
have
it
a near-death experience group in Columbus. A lady there had the longest running group, but she retired, so I took over her group. But I'd already
okay,
started one down here where I live. But then COVID come and they just both went out the window. So I started
yeah.
this.
Did some of the people come back?
I haven't had a in-person group since COVID, since I started this, but
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna start at one in Marietta. So when it
Okay.
get opens up, I'll invite you down to be a speaker.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I'm humble for your asking. Yeah, I get nervous. Like, again, I'm nervous sometimes when I talk to people.
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes when I get to talking, they're like, "You did so well." Like, oh, for real? I just lost track. I didn't even notice. Because if I knew this, I probably would have clammed up in a corner if I actually paid attention that I was actually talking.
Yeah, I was the same way. I used to practically hide behind the wall and get-togethers and stuff. People would say, "You used to be so shy. What happened?" I don't know. I
Yeah,
found something to
I'm so,
talk about that
yeah,
interests
I'm
me.
still working on that, and sometimes I can't even talk about it. Like with sometimes somebody asks me, or even be a phone call with some family members. Sometimes I can't talk, I just have to sit it out, because I get lightheaded sometimes if I talk for a certain period of time. I get really dizzy and I get really hot. So I just have to sit back and I tell my family when I do talk to them. Again, I say nothing against you. I love you to life, everything. I just can't right now.
Yeah.
I need this moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Well,
tried.
you did really good.
Again,
And
thank you. I'm surprised, but thank you.
you did really good. I appreciate you coming on. And
Well,
I'll
I appreciate
send this to you. It should be later this afternoon. I'll send it to you in email.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate you for having me. I'm really humbled that you decided that you wanted to help me share my story.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you again. All right, bye bye.